What's up, guys, and welcome back for another solo mining episode. Kind of out here doing some porpoise mining in high sec. One of the, one of the things in my wheelhouse that I like to do when I'm kind of just looking at very kind of low key, chill mining for volume. This is a pretty high security. It's a 0.9. I usually try to mine anywhere in a 1 to a 0.9 because rats just won't show up on grid with you. And so what that allows me to do is come out here in the Porpoise, which I need to actually get my siege module on here. So what I end up doing is I come out here to like a 1 or a 0.9 with the Porpoise. I siege up I just use regular Tech 2 mining drones because augments just kind of bring the price of this operation up a little bit. So this kind of keeps it, the whole fit here is about 270 million. Generally speaking, I try to stay out here long enough to, make it worth my while. It makes it very, you're not going to break even obviously on your first trip out, but in terms of just doing like industry and kind of mining solo, and for belt support like this, the Porpoise is pretty low cost considering, and we're able to just kind of chill. And most of the time when I'm doing this, I have maybe another alt somewhere doing some low sec stuff, usually bouncing between several accounts. I'm kind of moving more to the mindset of like solo being like literally just one account. I've been in the process actually lately of kind of consolidating alt down to just the smallest amount. I don't do like solo fleet mining anymore. That can be kind of confusing. I started off mainly as a fleet miner in a corporation, but transitioned from actually having like a bunch of accounts that I controlled, and I would mine that way. But more recently, I end up just kind of just doing things on a single character logged in, unless it's like Oracle mining where I have like eyes or a Sinowalt in another system or something. But I figured in this episode we will kind of just sit here and hang out in this Porpoise and do some mining, talk about drone mining in high sec and some of the other benefits of using a Porpoise for drone mining in other areas, not just in high sec. I've always been a really big fan of drone mining. When I first started mining actually with the corporation, one of my biggest aspirations was to get into an Orca. Obviously the yield for the drones was a lot better back then. We didn't have siege module, but solo Orca mining has always been kind of a thing, not because it's high yield, but because it's kind of like you take it out to a belt and you can just kind of spend a lot of time out there before you fill up. I would say arguably it's actually better now, even with lower mining drone yield because of compression. It allows you to stay out for just an insane amount of time, and the cost of heavy water to run the siege module is nominal. I mean, it's probably in this session alone I'll make enough to cover the heavy water that I'll use that just fills up the entire Porpoise. I won't even use half of it. So as far as like cost goes, if this ship got blown up right now, it's not really a big deal, because in my experience, and obviously like mileage is going to vary quite a bit on where you're mining and your experience and everything like that, but in my experience, I don't really get messed with too much. The cycle time for the Porpoise is really low as well, so we're about to see it cycle over now. So it's about minute 15 seconds on this cycle. Obviously, if you have a big fleet of destroyers come in, right, it could cause a problem. But in most cases, it just isn't really something I have to worry about. It's a risk, obviously. There's always a possibility of getting ganked. But, I mean, for the most part, it's real world. Real talk is just not something that I have to deal with a whole lot. I used to even take the Porpoise out into like low sec dead ends to do anomalies, which is considerably more risky but I don't really do that anymore. I try to stick to drone mining with these in well-known null-sec systems or in high-sec. And the reason I fit a cloak on this ship actually is mainly for null-sec. So if I was in null-sec right now and I was doing like Bistot or Arknor, I'd be 25, or I'd be 25 plus. Make sure I was more than 2,500 meters away from the rock. So if like a newt comes in or anything like that, I just suck the drones in, and then I just make sure I'm down sieged, and I just cloak up. The cloaking worked a lot better before we had like siege and compression and all that stuff, because even if you were running burst or whatever for other alts, the alts could fly off and then you could just cloak even with burst on. So I just kind of put a cloak on there out of just habit and best practice. And then the multispectrum shield hardeners are just for added tank. And then the warp core stabilizer I have on here just to allow me to, if in case I do go into like low sec or something, because it is possible, but I'll usually scout for low sec. So I'll use an alt to like kind of scout a system. If it's empty, I'll take a porpoise in there and stage it. And then if the ship's already in there, then it makes it a lot easier to kind of just bring the character in on a shuttle and then go out. And in those cases, if I'm going after like Kernite with drone mining and stuff like that, I won't siege full time like I would in high sec. I will I'll just kind of like basically I'll just kind of live with the low yield of non-siege, and if everything's clear on D-scan and there's no real crazy activity, then I'll siege for a cycle, compress everything, and kind of deal with things like that. And then that's why the warp core stabilizer is on there. So if anybody does come in, that just wants to like try to tackle, if it's like a single ship, then it's better to have it than not. So it just gives me a little bit of protection. But in most all cases, if you're going to do any sort of like Kernite or any sort of like null or low sec mining, it's almost better to just take like another ship that's better suited. So in my current setup and how I kind of configure things, the Porpoise for drone mining is pretty much just stuck doing the null sec, or not the null sec, but the high sec ores, just because I can go out here, I can work on getting trit at pretty high volumes and things like that. Alright, I got to turn on my compression here real quick. So I like turning on compression, just kind of do it all at once when I need to. But yeah, I haven't really talked in this series at all really about drone mining. I've done videos in the past about it. It's definitely not a popular thing to do in like a Porpoise or an Orca, but obviously there are still people out there that enjoy doing it. There are uses for it. You are really, really, really concerned about losing assets to like ganking and things, and obviously any of the other ships we've talked about in this series will do just fine. When you start getting more comfortable with your ability or the environment that you're mining in, then you start wanting to take more risk, and the Porpoise can be a little bit more attractive for that kind of endeavor. So, and this is kind of the point of this video too, is to kind of like sit here and chat with you guys. You can see me mining with the drones and hopefully inspire people a little bit. Obviously, it takes a little bit more skilling past what you would normally do. A lot of things that you focus on here is like shield skills, because I'm shield tanked. You have to get like shipboard compression, reconfiguration, all that stuff to run the siege module, the compression module. You have to get the drone skills, the drone yield. So there are a lot of things, a lot of skills that are required. But once you get it all kind of set up, then it's pretty fun. My goal is to try to, we've already able, since we were kind of been working towards the drone mining stuff for this character too, we can technically go ahead and run like an Orca, but I figured we'll do a separate video kind of going over like the Orca and things like that. if you want to get into drone mining, then the Porpoise is by far your best entry point. It has like I said, shorter cycle time on the Siege. It has faster line time, and it's just overall cheaper to replace. Orcas are kind of expensive right now in terms of, I mean, they can hold a lot. They can with compression and all that stuff like that. But really, I mean, if we don't get bothered, if we're not bothered on the belt out here, then really the ore hole doesn't really matter since we are compressing, right? Which, and even for me, it's like, I know, like when I first started mining, it was like all about yield, high. Everybody wanted like max yield and all that crazy stuff. It's like how much we want to get as much, cubic meters of ore, a minute or a cycle or whatever. But I kind of shifted my mentality or my perspective on that to more of like a long-term sustainability kind of basis. I would rather, if I knew I could, safely mine the ore, I would go with lower yield. And that's in terms of like running shield rigs as opposed to drone mining rigs. Or the difference between being sieged or not sieged. Sometimes, like I told you, most times I'm not sieged full time. I'll basically siege when I need to compress, and that's if I really feel like there's danger in the system. If you are going to mine or drone mine in high sec, you definitely want to make sure you check for pirate strongholds in the agency. You should be doing that before you mine in any high sec area. But it's kind of good practice. I'm trying to shift this series to more kind of mining gameplay instead of just kind of like highlights that we've kind of done in the past. I think I tried to do that a little bit with the last episode while we were mining ice in the endurance. Kind of showed you guys kind of a real world kind of trip out. But obviously my average trips in the Porpoise here can be hours and hours long. So we're not gonna try to make a video that is that long. But I think it's nice to just kind of like sit here and kind of chill, and you guys can kind of see how I kind of run things. And it doesn't seem like a big deal, but the fact that like rats don't spawn in asteroid belts with this high security makes a difference on your yield as well. Because when a rat comes on grid, you need to either suck one or more of your mining drones in, put out a combat drone, kill it, and then put it back in and take your mining drone out and put it back on the rock, which is a lot of moving parts. And it's not to say they were trying to be like AFK or more AFK, but it's like every time we take a drone off of a mining rock, we essentially lower our yield, our overall yield. And especially if you're not wanting to like siege full time, or if you're still waiting on the skills to be able to use the siege module, then yeah, you're gonna want to like try to keep drones on rocks at all times. The other thing I will say too is like, if you don't have your tactical manipulation, or not your tactical manipulation, but your target management skill pretty much all the way up, and you run a warp core stab, then you're going to be limited on the amount of targets you can hold. Right now I can hold 5, which is essentially what I need. I probably will end up dropping this warp core stab, since I do plan on doing a lot of Veldspar mining in high sec specifically, just for industry. That'll allow me to actually have a backup target. What that means is I can have 2 additional targets, so that if one of these rocks dies, I can go and assign the drone to that rock while I'm targeting the next, which also helps with downtime, which is important. As far as, I guess, I really hate like talking about ISK per hour when it comes to drone mining, just because for me, obviously, it's not going to be the best as you would if you were out here in a Mackinac or a Retriever, or if you're boosted in a Hulk or a Coveter. But it's really kind of like a different kind of gameplay style. But for the sake of this video, and you know, obviously your mileage may vary based on your skills and kind of where you're mining or how often you're mining or how long you're mining. At the end of this video, I will take the compressed ore that I have mined during the duration of this video, and we'll throw it through the appraisal, and I'll give you guys an idea of kind of what we've done. But I think that, you know, regardless, I mean, unless they just completely remove like drone mining from these ships, like I think I'll always have this in kind of my repertoire of things that I like to do. Obviously, it's nice taking other ships out, but drone mining is just so chill. And like one of the biggest things to aspire to, especially if you like the drone mining, command ship drone mining kind of gameplay, is high sec moon mining. If you can get to the point where even if you're in a Porpoise with drones and you're out, well, no, I wouldn't even do a Porpoise. Do like an Orca. Obviously, you can't get the moon compressor, but it's just, if you get like a bonus moon in high sec and you're drone mining on it, I've sat out there for hours and hours and hours and have made a killing. And then it's very easy to just have like an alt that's running like a Miasmos or some sort of transport ship to come empty you out. And I've sat there for, you know, the better part of a day just grabbing like that bonus frac ore that just ends up paying out really, really well. And that's just kind of like getting into a corporation that kind of does moon mining, or start doing moon mining yourself. So I wouldn't really worry too much about moon mining if you're trying to be solo, because you have to, you know, drop an Athenor, then you have to, you know, rig it for moons, and then you have to set it up, and then, you know, you got to wait for the moon fracture and so like that. It's a lot of setup, and it's not a guarantee that you'll get like a bonus moon on it, on that frac. It's actually better if you are like kind of, if you're already looking for a corporation, find a mining corporation that's already kind of doing high sec moon mining, and you're able to kind of just jump in and kind of learn the ropes and things like that. But that's probably the best money I've made in high sec in terms of mining, was actually just doing moon mining with an Orca with drones. And then obviously if you already have mining alts and stuff like that, you can configure your Orca or your command ship in a way where you can drone mine. You can also burst and, you know, boost all your alts and get even more. I'm not sure, but like maybe like as the series progresses, I think like we're going to continue kind of focusing on single ship kind of engagements. So there's still a few barges and exhumers we need to hit and kind of talk about. And then, you know, we'll talk about the Orca and we'll start doing some Rorqual stuff. And I think once we get kind of past that point, my goal is to maybe like start exploring solo fleet mining. I know that's really confusing because a lot of people consider solo as being just a single account. But for mining, in most cases, people are mining by themselves with multiple accounts in their own fleets. And if there's interest there, then I'll try to explore that side of solo mining in a fleet format, because there's a lot of cool things you can do there as well. And before I consolidate all of my alts, I'd kind of like to kind of do a pass through that kind of style of gameplay as well. So we can end up doing stuff like, you know, taking the Orca out with, you know, 3 or 4. Actually, I think I can do like 3 Hulks, or we can throw Coveters in there, or Procurers, or whatever. And just kind of give you guys an idea of how I used to do fleet mining solo, or what I would do now, and things like that. So that's definitely kind of on the table if that's of interest. It's obviously, if you're starting off in mining, it's, you know, something that you're going to have to aspire to, because once you have your main mining alt, and you're going to eventually probably end up getting a second mining alt, and it's a while before you actually get to the point where you can kind of field that kind of setup. But I figured I'm going to start trying to like look into kind of showing that kind of stuff. All right. We still have compression running. I like to run compression. all the time because it doesn't actually matter. But I figured that's, kind of what I'm doing today. And let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and grab, I'll stack up my inventory here. Go ahead and grab all the stuff I've already mined, and we'll go ahead and throw it in the appraisal. I'll throw that up on the screen so you guys can see kind of what we've mined while we've been working this video. Obviously it's not great, but for the amount of effort that we've put in, just kind of chilling, clicking stuff, not bad. And it scales a little bit more if you start adding alts and you add bursts, and because the thing is, if you're bursting with a command ship, other alts, there's no reason why your command ship can't also just have drones out, kind of grabbing some extra as well. But let's go and down siege. What I'll do there is, usually when I'm ready to go off grid, wasn't really planning on doing a whole big session this morning, but I figured I'd come out here and kind of show you guys kind of what it looks like. I'm probably going to come back out here in a little while and do a few more hours and things, but hopefully you enjoyed the video, and we'll try to get into some more of the drone mining stuff, and even we'll start talking about even like potential drone mining with the other ships as well. In most cases it's kind of just very, very little added value when it comes to adding mining drones onto the other barges and stuff. It helps a little bit, but I mean, you have to take into account the amount of training time for the mining drones to make it worth it, and most of the time on the other ships you're going to be running combat drones and things. But I don't really want this episode to run too long. I think what we'll do probably for the next episode is we might actually try to like do kind of a longer play session or longer mining session here, and kind of give you guys a good idea of like a really real world, like per hour that the Porpoise can do. But also you can kind of just take the value and that I'm showing you now and kind of extrapolate from that. But thank you for watching. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.